The words slithered through the crack in her father's study door, and Marin Ashford stopped breathing. £15,000, her father said. That's my final price. Silence. Then a voice she didn't recognize. Low, cold, utterly without emotion. Your daughter is worth considerably more than that, Lord Ashford. But you already know that, don't you? You're simply hoping I'm desperate enough not to notice. Marin pressed her palm against the wallpaper, steadying herself. Her father was selling something for £15,000. Property, perhaps. Horses. Surely not the estate itself. She's young, her father continued, and Marin's blood turned to ice. Healthy. Beautiful, if you care about such things. And untouched. I can guarantee that personally. They were talking about her. Her father was selling her. Your guarantees mean nothing to me. The stranger's voice cut like a blade through silk. I've seen what your guarantees are worth. Forged signatures, falsified debts, a trail of ruined families stretching back a decade. Then why are you here, Your Grace? Your Grace. A duke. Her father was selling her to a duke. Because, unlike your previous victims, I can afford to end you. A pause. Footsteps crossing the room. And because your daughter, unlike you, might actually be salvageable. Marin's nails dug into the wallpaper. Salvageable. Like damaged goods. Like a horse with a questionable leg. Then we have a deal. We have nothing until I see her. Bring her to Thornbury Castle tomorrow evening. Alone. No chaperone. No maid. No witnesses. The stranger's voice dropped, and Marin had to strain to hear. And Ashford? If she's not what you've promised, if she's been touched, or if she so much as suspects what you've done, the magistrate receives my evidence within the hour. Your choice. A daughter or a noose. She won't suspect anything. I'll tell her it's a house party, an introduction to potential suitors. Then we understand each other. £15,000 upon confirmation of her suitability. Not a shilling before. Confirmation of her suitability. Marin wanted to vomit. And what happens to her after? Her father's voice was careless, bored. Once you've confirmed she meets your requirements? The stranger laughed. It was the coldest sound Marin had ever heard. That's no longer your concern. Once she crosses my threshold, she belongs to me. Body, name, and future. I'll do with her exactly as I please, and neither you nor God himself will stop me. I'll do with her exactly as I please. The words branded themselves into Marin's mind. She stumbled backward, hand flying to her mouth. Her heel caught on the carpet runner, and she crashed into the hallway table, sending a porcelain vase shattering against the floor. The study door flew open. Her father stood there, face draining of color. Behind him, half in shadow, stood the tallest man Marin had ever seen. Dark hair, darker eyes, a face unreadable and just as cold. He looked at her with absolutely no expression. Marin! Her father's voice was strangled. What are you doing here? I heard everything. She was shaking, couldn't stop shaking. You're selling me, like cattle, like property. To him. You misunderstood. This is the Duke of Thornbury. He's simply visiting to discuss a business arrangement regarding the northern lands. Don't. The word tore from her throat. Don't lie to me. I heard you. £15,000. Confirmation of my suitability. She belongs to me. She turned to the Duke, and something reckless ignited in her chest. Is that what I am to you? Something to be purchased? Something to be used exactly as you please? The Duke studied her for a long moment. His face gave nothing away. You have spirit. That's unexpected. I have more than spirit. I have a voice, and I will use it. I will tell everyone what you've done, what you're planning to do. I'll go to the magistrate myself. Will you? He stepped closer, and she forced herself not to retreat. He smelled of wood smoke and something darker, something dangerous. And tell them what, exactly? That the Duke of Thornbury visited your father's home? That they discussed business? You have no proof, Miss Ashford. No witnesses. Only the hysterical accusations of a young woman no one will believe. I'll make them believe. No. He said it simply, without malice. You won't. Because by tomorrow evening, you'll be at Thornbury Castle. You'll arrive willingly, or your father will hang for his crimes, and you'll be left with nothing. No dowry, no reputation, no family name worth speaking. Just another ruined woman in a world that devours ruined women. He tilted his head, studying her like something mildly interesting he'd found beneath a rock. So I suggest you consider your options carefully. My options? She laughed, and it came out wild, broken. I have no options. That's rather the point, isn't it? Everyone has options, Miss Ashford. Some are simply less appealing than others. And which option are you? The less appealing one? Something shifted in his gaze, gone before she could name it. I'm the only option. You simply haven't realized it yet. Her father stepped between them, hands raised. Marin, please. This isn't what you think. The Duke is an honorable man. He's offered to help our family, to settle certain debts that have become rather pressing, in exchange for your hand in marriage. You're lying. But doubt crept into her voice. Marriage? Was that all this was? An arranged marriage? Harsh in its negotiation, but ultimately ordinary? I never lie, the Duke said quietly. It's inefficient. Your father, however, lies constantly. So let me be perfectly clear about what happens next. He stepped closer still, close enough that she could see the faint scar along his jaw, the shadows beneath his eyes. You will come to Thornbury Castle tomorrow. You will stay for 1 week. At the end of that week, you will decide whether to accept my proposal or return to your father's keeping. The choice will be entirely yours. And if I choose to return, then you return, and your father faces the consequences of his actions alone. You'd let him hang? Without hesitation. She stared at him, at the cold certainty in his eyes, at the complete absence of anything resembling mercy. You're a monster, she whispered. Yes. He turned toward the door, then paused, looking back over his shoulder. But I'm the monster who's offering you a way out. Consider that, Miss Ashford, before you decide which devil you'd rather dance with. The door closed behind him, and Marin Ashford stood in the ruins of everything she'd ever believed, watching her future crumble into dust. The carriage arrived at precisely 6 o'clock the following evening. Black lacquered wood, drawn by 4 horses the color of midnight. No crest on the door, no indication of who owned it or where it was going. Marin watched from her bedroom window as a footman descended and spoke with her father. She'd spent the entire night awake, planning escapes that crumbled the moment she examined them. Run to her aunt in Somerset? Her father would find her within days. Appeal to the local magistrate? The Duke was right. No one would believe her. Throw herself on the mercy of the church? She'd be returned to her father before nightfall. Every door was locked, every window barred, not physically, but in every way that mattered. Miss Ashford. Her maid's voice was soft, pitying. Your father says it's time. Time to be delivered like a parcel. Time to cross a threshold from which there might be no return. She descended the stairs slowly, memorizing every detail of the home she'd known since birth. The portrait of her mother in the front hall, dead these 12 years. The crack in the 3rd stair that her father had never bothered to repair. The smell of beeswax and faded roses that had always meant safety. None of it meant safety now. Her father waited by the door, wringing his hands. He couldn't meet her eyes. Marin, I want you to know that this is for the best. The Duke is a good man, A powerful man. He'll give you everything I never could. Except a choice. You have a choice. He said so himself. A choice between marrying a stranger who bought me and watching you hang. She pulled on her gloves with deliberate precision. That's not a choice, Father. That's a threat dressed in silk. Please. He reached for her hand, and she stepped back. Please, try to understand. Lord Mercer was going to destroy us. The debts I owe him, the things he knows about our family. If the Duke hadn't intervened, we would have lost everything. The house, the lands, our name itself. So, instead you sold your daughter. I saved my daughter. His voice cracked. Mercer wanted you for himself. Did you know that? He came to me 3 months ago with an offer. Not marriage. Something far less honorable. When I refused, he began calling in debts, pressuring associates, making threats. The Duke is the only man powerful enough to stop him. Marin stared at her father. Lord Mercer. She knew him, had danced with him twice at the Pemberton ball. He'd been charming, attentive, with golden hair and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to be afraid. He laughed bitterly. And look how well that worked. The footman appeared at the door. Miss Ashford? His Grace is expecting you. She looked at her father one last time, saw the shame in his face, the fear, the desperate hope that she might forgive him. She couldn't. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. Goodbye, Father. The carriage interior was finer than anything she'd ever seen. Velvet seats, silver fixtures, windows of crystal clear glass. A blanket had been laid out for her, soft cashmere in deep burgundy. A small box on the opposite seat contained chocolates, a flask of what smelled like tea, and a book of poetry. Comforts, kindnesses, from a man who'd promised to do with her exactly as he pleased. The contradiction made her head ache. The journey took 3 hours. She watched the landscape change from familiar farmland to wild moorland, from gentle hills to craggy peaks that scraped the darkening sky. No villages now. No churches. Just endless heath and the distant cry of birds she couldn't name. And then, rising from the moor like something from a fever dream, Thornbury Castle. It was massive. Ancient. A fortress of black stone and iron spires, lit from within by 1,000 flickering lights. Gargoyles crouched on every parapet. The main tower rose so high it seemed to pierce the clouds themselves. This was where she would spend the next week, perhaps the rest of her life. The carriage stopped. The footman opened the door, and there, standing on the steps of his monstrous home, was the Duke of Thornbury himself. He'd changed from the dark coat he'd worn at her father's house. Now he was dressed in black from head to toe, his only ornament a single silver ring on his left hand. His face was still impenetrable, still shuttered completely. But his eyes tracked her descent from the carriage with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Miss Ashford, he extended his hand. Welcome to Thornbury. She didn't take it. I'm here under duress, Your Grace. Let's not pretend otherwise. Something that might have been respect flickered across his features. Very well. Then let me show you to your cell. He turned and walked into the darkness of his castle. After a moment, Marin followed. What choice did she have? Her cell was larger than the entire ground floor of Ashford House. Marin stood in the center of the bedchamber, turning slowly, taking in the 4-poster bed draped in cream silk, the fireplace tall enough to stand in, the windows that stretched from floor to ceiling and looked out over moonlit gardens that seemed to go on forever. These will be your rooms for the duration of your stay, the Duke said from the doorway. He hadn't crossed the threshold, hadn't entered her space. The adjoining door leads to a private sitting room. Beyond that, a bathing chamber. You'll find the wardrobe stocked with appropriate clothing. If anything is lacking, inform Mrs. Thornwood, and it will be provided. You had clothing made for me. It wasn't a question. Before I agreed to come, before I even knew what you were planning, I had clothing made for my potential bride. You happened to fit the description. And if I'd refused, if I'd chosen to let my father hang, then the clothing would have been donated to charity, and I would have found another candidate. He said it without cruelty, without malice, simply stating facts. I'm not a sentimental man, Miss Ashford. I do what is necessary to achieve my objectives. And what objective am I supposed to serve? He was silent for a long moment. The firelight cast shadows across his face, making him look older, harder. That, he said finally, is a conversation for tomorrow. Tonight you rest. Mrs. Thornwood will bring supper to your rooms. The doors lock from the inside. No one will disturb you. He turned to leave. Wait. The word escaped before she could stop it. He paused, but didn't turn. You said I would have a choice, at the end of the week, a real choice. I did. How do I know you're telling the truth? Now he did turn. His eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something beneath the stone, something that might have been pain. You don't. But I give you my word, Miss Ashford. Whatever else I am not a liar. Your word means nothing to me. Not yet. He inclined his head, the ghost of a bow. Good night, Miss Ashford. Sleep well. The door closed behind him. Marin crossed to it immediately, testing the lock. It turned smoothly under her fingers. True to his word, no one could enter without her permission. She pressed her forehead against the cool wood and tried to breathe. 1 week. She had 1 week to understand what the Duke of Thornbury truly wanted from her. 1 week to find a way out of this gilded trap. 1 week to decide if marrying a monster was better than facing Lord Mercer's undefined, but clearly terrible intentions. She didn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. Instead, she explored her rooms, searching for anything that might help her understand her captor. The sitting room held shelves of books, all well-read, spines cracked with use, poetry, philosophy, a surprising number of texts on agriculture and land management. The bathing chamber was stocked with soaps that smelled of lavender and rose, luxury beyond anything she'd known. And in the wardrobe, exactly as he'd promised, hung gown after gown after gown. Silks, satins, velvets in jewel tones, morning dresses, afternoon dresses, evening gowns with necklines that made her blush. He'd known her size, her coloring, her preferences. How long had he been watching her? A knock at the door made her jump. She crossed to it cautiously, pressing her ear against the wood. Miss Ashford? A woman's voice, elderly and kind. I've brought your supper, dear, and a bit of warm milk, if you're having trouble sleeping. Marin opened the door. A small, gray-haired woman stood in the hallway, carrying a tray laden with food. Her smile was genuine, warm. I'm Mrs. Thornwood, housekeeper here for 43 years. And you, if I may say, are exactly what this house needs. A bit of life, a bit of fire. She bustled past Marin, setting the tray on a small table by the fireplace. His Grace is a good man, miss. I know he doesn't seem it, but there's kindness in him, buried deep. You'll see if you give him a chance. He bought me. Did he? Mrs. Thornwood's eyes twinkled. Or did he buy your freedom from men who would have done far worse? That's not. That's the same thing. Is it? The housekeeper moved toward the door, then paused. A bit of advice, miss, from an old woman who's seen too much. Not everything in this world is what it appears, and not every cage is a prison. Sometimes it's a shelter. She was gone before Marin could respond. Marin stared at the closed door, mind churning. A shelter? Was that what the Duke intended? Protection? Not ownership? But his words echoed in her memory. She belongs to me. I'll do with her exactly as I please. Those weren't the words of a protector. Those were the words of a man staking a claim. She ate mechanically, tasting nothing. The fire burned low, then lower. Outside, the moon rose over the wild moor, casting silver light across grounds that seemed to stretch into infinity. Somewhere in this castle, the Duke of Thornbury was awake too. She could feel it, a presence at the edges of her awareness, watching, waiting. What did he want from her? What was she willing to give? And why, despite everything, despite the fear and the fury and the desperate urge to flee, did some small, traitorous part of her want to know the answers? She climbed into the enormous bed, pulling the silk covers up to her chin. Tomorrow, she would find out. Tomorrow, the game would truly begin. But tonight, alone in a monster's castle, Marin Ashford made herself a promise. Whatever happened, whatever the Duke intended, she would not break. She would not bend. She would find a way to survive this, on her own terms, or she would burn everything down trying. Morning came gray and cold, mist rolling across the moors like something alive. Marin woke to find a fresh fire burning in the hearth and a breakfast tray waiting on the table by the window. Silver covers kept the food warm. A single white rose lay across the napkin. She stared at the rose for a long moment. What kind of monster left flowers for his captive? She dressed in the simplest gown she could find, a dove gray morning dress that felt like armor. Then she unlocked her door and stepped into the corridor beyond. Thornbury Castle was even larger than it had appeared last night. Corridors stretched in every direction, lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors and tapestries depicting hunts and battles. Marin walked without direction, mapping the space in her mind. The east wing held bedchambers. The west wing appeared to be unused, doors closed, dust gathering on the handles. The main staircase descended into a great hall that could have held 300 guests with room to spare, and everywhere, servants. They bowed as she passed, murmured, "Miss Ashford," with respect she hadn't earned, watched her with curious eyes. "You're up early," she spun. The Duke stood at the base of the staircase, dressed for riding, crop in hand. In daylight, he looked different. Less like a villain from a Gothic novel, more like a man who hadn't slept in days. I couldn't stay in my room forever. You could. Many would, in your position. He studied her with those unreadable eyes. But you're not the cowering type, are you, Miss Ashford? Would you prefer it if I were? No. He said it simply, without elaboration. I'm riding the western borders this morning. You're welcome to join me if you'd like to see the estate. Am I a guest or a prisoner? I'm finding it difficult to tell. Today, you're a guest. He moved toward the front doors, then paused. Tomorrow might be different. It depends entirely on you. She should have refused, should have returned to her room and continued planning her escape. But curiosity burned in her chest, and something else too. A need to understand this man who spoke in riddles and contradictions. Very well, she said. I'll ride with you. The stables held 24 horses, all magnificent. The Duke selected a black stallion for himself and offered Marin a chestnut mare with gentle eyes. They rode in silence across the moor, following paths that seemed to exist only in the Duke's memory. The land was beautiful. Wild and untamed, yes, but beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. Purple heather stretched to the horizon. Streams cut silver paths through the dark earth. In the distance, mountains rose like sleeping giants. This is what you're offering me? She asked finally. This land? This life? This is what I'm offering to share with you. There's a difference. And if I refuse? Then you return to your father, and everything you see here passes to my cousin upon my death, a man who would sell it piece by piece to the highest bidder. You have no heir. I have no wife, He guided his horse around a rocky outcropping. The two problems are connected. Before she could respond, the sound of hoofbeats reached them. Another rider, approaching fast from the east. The Duke's expression hardened into something dangerous. "Get behind me," he said quietly. "What?" "Why?" "Because Lord Mercer is riding toward us, and if he touches you, I'll kill him where he stands." Ice spread through Marin's veins. She recognized the rider now. Golden hair gleaming in the weak sunlight. That smile that never reached his eyes. Lord Mercer reined his horse to a stop 10 feet away. "Your Grace? What a pleasant surprise. I was told you'd taken a house guest. I had to come see for myself. You're not welcome here, Mercer. You know that. And yet here I am." Mercer's gaze slid to Marin, and something hungry flashed in his eyes. "Miss Ashford, you're looking well. Far better than you looked at the Pemberton ball, if I may say. Country air suits you." She forced her voice to remain steady. "Lord Mercer, I didn't expect to see you here." "No, but we're practically family, my dear. Your father and I have become such close friends these past months. Intimate even." His grin spread wider. "He's told me so much about you." The Duke moved his horse, placing himself between Marin and Mercer. "State your business and leave." "My business is with Miss Ashford, actually. You see, her father owes me a considerable debt, one he promised to repay through rather unconventional means." Mercer's eyes never left Marin's face. "I've come to collect what's owed." "Miss Ashford owes you nothing, doesn't she? Her father signed a contract, Your Grace, legally binding, witnessed, and notarized." Mercer reached into his coat and produced a folded document. "Miss Ashford's hand in marriage, in exchange for the forgiveness of £12,000 in debt. Signed 3 months ago, before you intervened with your competing offer." The world tilted. Marin gripped her horse's mane, fighting for balance. Her father had sold her twice. "That contract is void," the Duke said, his voice edged with frost. "I've already paid Ashford's debts, all of them, including yours." "Ah, but you paid the debts. You didn't purchase the contract itself." Mercer tucked the document away. "Miss Ashford belongs to me, Your Grace, by law, and I intend to claim her. Over my dead body." "That," Mercer said softly, "can certainly be arranged." He turned his horse and rode away without another word, leaving Marin frozen in the saddle, staring at the man who had promised to do with her as he pleased, and wondering which devil was truly the lesser evil. They rode back to the castle in silence, the Duke's mouth pressed thin, his hands white, knuckled on the reins. Marin watched him from the corner of her eye, trying to reconcile what she'd just witnessed. He'd defended her, threatened to kill for her, put himself between her and danger without hesitation. Why? In the stable yard, he dismounted and handed his horse to a waiting groom. Then he turned to help Marin down. His hands closed around her waist, strong and warm, and for a moment they stood too close, her hands on his shoulders and his face inches from hers. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "My father sold me twice." Her voice came out hollow. "So, no, I don't think I'm all right." He released her immediately, stepping back. The warmth vanished, replaced by that familiar stone mask. "Come with me. There are things you need to understand." She followed him into the castle, through the great hall, down a corridor she hadn't explored. He stopped before a heavy oak door and produced a key from his waistcoat. "My study. No one enters without my permission." He unlocked the door and stepped aside. "Today, you have my permission." The room was smaller than she'd expected, intimate even. Books lined every wall. A fire burned low in the hearth. Papers covered the desk in neat stacks, and maps hung on the walls, marked with pins and colored threads. "Sit," he said. She remained standing. "Tell me about the contract." "Your father is a desperate man, Miss Ashford. Desperate men make desperate bargains. He moved to the window, staring out at the moors. 3 months ago, Lord Mercer approached him with an offer. Marriage to you, in exchange for the forgiveness of debts your father could never repay. Your father accepted. And you? Where do you fit into this? I have spent 2 years gathering evidence of Mercer's crimes. Fraud, extortion, the ruination of no fewer than 6 families through predatory lending and falsified documents. He turned to face her. Your father was to be his 7th victim, and you were to be his prize. His prize. Mercer doesn't want a wife, Miss Ashford. He wants a possession, a beautiful, well-bred woman he can parade before society, while destroying everything she loves. A shadow crossed his face. He did the same to my sister. The words hit like a physical blow. Your sister? Corinne. She was 19 when Mercer courted her. Charming, attentive, everything a young woman dreams of. His voice hardened. She married him against my father's wishes. 6 months later, she was dead. The official cause was a fall from her horse. The truth was far uglier. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate. I didn't know. No one knows. Mercer is very careful about what he allows the world to see. He crossed to his desk, pulling a drawer open and removing a thick folder. This is everything I've gathered. Witness statements, financial records, letters Corinne managed to smuggle to me before her death, enough to destroy him 10 times over. Then why haven't you? Why is he still free? Because the moment I move against him, he'll disappear. He has connections in every port, allies in every government. If I strike and miss, I'll never get another chance. His eyes met hers. I need to ensure he can't escape, and for that, I need leverage. Understanding dawned, cold and terrible. Me. I'm your leverage. You're the woman he believes he owns. As long as he thinks he can claim you, he'll stay close. He'll make mistakes. And when he does, I'll destroy him. So I'm bait. You're my partner. He set the folder on the desk between them. If you choose to be, I won't force you, Miss Ashford. I won't pretend this isn't dangerous. But I'm offering you the chance to help me bring down the man who would have destroyed you. The same man who destroyed my sister. Marin studied him closely. At this man who carried guilt like armor, who had spent years hunting the man who destroyed his family. Why didn't you tell me this from the beginning? Because I didn't know if I could trust you. Your father is Mercer's creature. For all I knew, you were too. And now? Now, I've seen you face him without flinching. I've seen the fire in your eyes. For the first time, something like warmth entered his voice. I think you might be the ally I've been waiting for. She should have been angry, should have raged at being used, manipulated, kept in the dark. But all she felt was a strange, fierce hope. If I agree to this, she said slowly, if I help you destroy Mercer, what happens afterward? What happens to me? That depends on what you want. Marriage to me, if you'll have me. Or freedom, with enough money to live however you choose. He paused. The choice will be yours, Miss Ashford. I swear it on my sister's grave. She looked at this man, this duke who had bought her like property, and then offered her something no one ever had. A choice. A real choice. Tell me everything, she said. Every detail, every plan, every risk. His expression wavered, just slightly. Not a smile, but close. Sit down, Miss Ashford. This will take some time. 3 days passed. 3 days of planning, strategizing, learning everything the Duke knew about Lord Mercer's web of crimes. 3 days of meals taken together in his study, of conversations that stretched late into the night, of slowly understanding the man behind the mask. His name was Kaelin. He'd told her that on the second night, almost shyly. Kaelin Vance, 8th Duke of Thornbury, named for a grandfather who died before he was born. He hated attending balls, preferred the company of horses to people, and read poetry when he couldn't sleep. He was nothing like the monster she'd imagined, and that was becoming a problem. On the fourth morning, Maren woke to find a note slipped beneath her door. Unmarked envelope. No seal. She opened it with trembling fingers. "My dearest Miss Ashford, you've been avoiding me. That's rather rude, considering what you owe me. Did the Duke tell you his little sob story about his sister? Touching, I'm sure. But he failed to mention his own role in her death. Ask him about the night of the fire. Ask him why Corinne was alone when she needed him most. I'll be at the village inn this evening. Come alone, and we can discuss your future like civilized people. Bring the Duke, and I'll ensure every newspaper in London knows that you've been living unchaperoned in his castle for nearly a week. Your reputation or your freedom, my dear. Choose wisely. Ever yours." Lord M. Maren's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the paper. The night of the fire. What fire? The Duke had never mentioned a fire. She should show him the note immediately. Should tell him Mercer had made contact, was escalating, was here. But the questions burned in her mind. What wasn't Kaelin telling her? What had he done? She dressed quickly, told Mrs. Thornwood she was taking a walk to clear her head, and slipped out through the servants' entrance. The village was 3 miles distant. She could be there and back before anyone noticed her absence. The inn was small, crowded with farmers and merchants stopping for midday meals. Mercer sat in a private parlor at the back, elegant and composed, as if he hadn't just threatened to ruin her life. "Miss Ashford." He rose, taking her hand before she could stop him. "You came. I wasn't sure you would." She pulled her hand away. "Say what you have to say. I won't stay long. Straight to business. I admire that." He gestured to a chair. "Please, sit. Let me tell you a story. I'm not interested in your stories. You'll be interested in this one. It's about the saintly Duke of Thornbury and the night he let his sister burn." Despite herself, Maren sat, Mercer's lips curled with satisfaction. "Corinne didn't die in a riding accident. You're right about that. She died in a fire at the hunting lodge where she'd gone to escape me." He leaned forward. "She sent word to her brother, begging him to come. Begging for rescue. And do you know what the Duke did?" "I don't believe anything you say." "He didn't come." Mercer's voice dropped to a whisper. "He received her letter and chose to wait until morning. By the time he arrived, the lodge was ash and Corinne was dead." "You're lying." "Am I?" "Ask him. Ask him where he was the night of October 15th, 1819. Ask him why he carries that guilt like a stone around his neck." Mercer reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She flinched away. "He's not your savior, Miss Ashford. He's a man who failed the one person who needed him most, and he'll fail you too when it matters. You killed her. You drove her to that lodge. You set the fire. Prove it." His expression twisted into something triumphant. "The Duke has been trying for 2 years. He has nothing, just grief and guilt, and a burning need for someone to blame." He stood, circling behind her chair. "I'm offering you a way out. Come with me willingly, and I'll forgive your father's debts. I'll even let you maintain certain freedoms. I'm not an unreasonable man. And if I refuse, then I destroy you." His hand settled on her shoulders, grip tightening. "Your reputation, your family, your precious Duke. I'll burn it all down, and I'll make sure you watch." Maren forced herself to breathe, to think, to remember everything Kaelin had taught her about Mercer's weaknesses. "You're afraid of him," she said quietly. "That's why you're doing this. You know he's getting closer to the truth, and you're desperate." The grip on her shoulders turned painful. "Choose your next words very carefully, Miss Ashford. You didn't expect him to intervene. You thought my father was isolated, vulnerable, easy to control. But the Duke moved faster than you anticipated, and now you're scrambling. I'm offering you a generous proposal. You're offering me slavery with better dresses." She stood, forcing him to release her. "I decline." Mercer's face contorted, the charming mask slipping to reveal something ugly beneath. "You stupid girl. Do you think he'll protect you? He couldn't even protect his own sister." "Maybe not. But I can protect myself." She walked toward the door. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. "This isn't over," Mercer called after her. "You'll regret this, Miss Ashford. I promise you that." She didn't look back. The walk back to the castle was the longest 3 miles of her life. Every shadow seemed to hold danger. Every sound made her flinch. But she made it. Stepped through the servants' entrance, climbed the stairs to her room, and locked the door behind her. Only then did she let herself collapse. Mercer was right about one thing. The Duke had secrets. Secrets about his sister, about that night, about the guilt he carried. But Mercer was wrong about everything else. Because Marin had seen the way Kalen looked at her, had heard the tremor in his voice when he spoke of his sister, had felt the truth beneath his words. He wasn't a man who would let her burn. And tomorrow, she would tell him everything. The note. The meeting. Mercer's threats and revelations. But tonight, she needed to think. Tonight, she needed to decide whether she trusted a man who had bought her with his secrets, or if she was making the same mistake his sister had made 7 years ago. She found him in the study the next morning, standing before the fire with a glass of whiskey in his hand. It was barely past dawn. He hadn't slept. She could see it in the shadows beneath his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. "You went to see him." The words hit her like a slap. "How did you know?" "Because I know Mercer, and I know you." He turned, and his eyes were blazing. "Do you have any idea how dangerous that was? He could have taken you, could have dragged you off to some carriage and disappeared before anyone knew you were missing. I can take care of myself. Can you?" He slammed the glass down on the mantel. Whiskey sloshed over the rim. "Against a man who murdered his own wife, against a man who has ruined half the families in this county? You think spirit and cleverness will protect you from someone like that?" "I think I deserve the truth." She held up Mercer's note. "He told me about the fire, about Corinne, about the night she died." Kalen went very still. "He said you received her letter and chose not to come. He said you let her burn. And you believed him?" "I don't know what to believe." Her voice cracked. "You've told me so much, but you've left out the parts that matter, the parts about your guilt, your failure, whatever it is that haunts you." "You want the truth?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The truth is that I was 20 miles away when that lodge caught fire. The truth is that Corinne's letter reached me at midnight, and I rode through a storm to reach her. The truth is that I arrived to find nothing but ashes, and a body so badly burned, I could only identify her by her wedding ring." Marin's throat tightened. "Then why does Mercer say you abandoned her?" "Because he's a liar. Because twisting the truth is what he does." Kalen moved toward her, and she saw the anguish beneath the anger. "But he's not entirely wrong. I did fail her. Not that night. Long before." "What do you mean?" "I knew what he was." The words came out raw, broken. "I knew from the beginning. The way he looked at her. The way he isolated her from our family, from her friends. I saw the signs, and I did nothing. I told myself she was happy. Told myself I was imagining things. And by the time I accepted the truth, it was too late." "That's not your fault. She was an adult. She made her own choices." "She was my sister." His voice shattered. "My responsibility. And I was so busy being respectable, being proper, following the rules of society, that I let a monster steal her away." Marin searched his face. At this man who carried guilt like armor, who had spent years hunting the man who destroyed his family. Is that why you bought me? She asked quietly. Because you couldn't save her, so you're trying to save me instead. I bought you because you were in danger. Because I saw Mercer circling your family the same way he circled mine. Because I couldn't stand by and watch another woman be destroyed by him. And the rest? The proposal? The week together? Was any of it real? He closed his eyes. All of it was real. That's the problem. What do you mean? I mean, I intended to use you as bait, nothing more. A strategic asset in my war against Mercer. I never intended to. He stopped, teeth clenched. I never intended to feel anything. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. And do you? She whispered. Feel something? He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. But his eyes said everything his voice refused to speak. Kaylin, don't. He held up a hand. Don't ask me questions I can't answer. Don't make me promise things I can't give. Why not? Because Mercer is still out there. Because your reputation is already damaged by being here. Because even if I destroy him, even if we win, I'm not the man you deserve. You don't get to decide what I deserve. Someone has to. He turned away, bracing his hands on the mantel. You should leave, Marin. Go back to your father. Let me fight this war alone. Is that what you want? For me to leave? Silence, long and terrible. No. The word was barely audible. But it's what's best for you. And what about what I want? She crossed to him, forcing him to face her. What about my choice? You don't know what you're choosing. Then tell me. Tell me everything. The truth. The whole truth. No more secrets. He looked at her, and she saw it. The war inside him. The desperate need fighting against years of isolation and guilt. If I tell you everything, he said slowly, you'll never be able to leave. You'll be part of this. Part of me. And I don't know if that's a kindness or a curse. Let me decide. Another long pause. Then, so quietly she almost didn't hear it. Stay for dinner. I'll tell you everything. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a declaration. But it was a beginning. Dinner was served in the small dining room, not the grand hall. Candles cast warm light across white linens and silver cutlery. Mrs. Thornwood had outdone herself. Roasted pheasant, winter vegetables, a wine so rich it tasted like velvet. But neither of them ate much. Kaylin talked. For hours he talked. About Corinne's wedding day, how she'd looked like an angel in white. About the first time he'd seen bruises on her arms and the excuses she'd made. About the letters she'd smuggled to him, each one more desperate than the last. About the night of the fire. She wrote to me from the hunting lodge, he said, staring into his wine glass. Said she'd finally left him. Said she was hiding, needed protection. The letter took 2 days to reach me. By the time I arrived, it wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? I should have acted sooner. Should have dragged her away from him the moment I saw the first bruise. Instead, I worried about scandal, about what society would say, about protecting our family's name. He laughed bitterly. Our name. As if that mattered more than her life. You were trying to respect her choices. You couldn't have known. I should have known. His fingers curled around hers, grip tight. And I swore, on her grave, that I would never let another woman suffer the way she suffered. That I would destroy Mercer if it took me the rest of my life. For 5 years, I did nothing but grieve. Then I started fighting back. Is that why you want me? As a weapon against him? It's why I noticed you. Why I started watching your family. He met her eyes. It's not why I want you now. Her lungs seized. Then why? Because you're brave? Because you face monsters without flinching? Because you walked into Mercer's trap yesterday and walked out again through sheer force of will? His thumb traced circles on her palm. Because you're the first person in 7 years who's made me want something other than revenge. What do you want? You. The word was raw, desperate. I want you, Marin, and I have no right to want you. No right to even ask. Then don't ask. She rose, moving around the table toward him. Don't ask. Just take. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. She stood before him now, close enough to touch. I'm saying that I'm tired of being a pawn, tired of men deciding my fate. My father sold me. Mercer wants to own me. Even you, with all your noble intentions, bought me like property. Marin. But right now, in this moment, I choose. Not my father. Not Mercer. Not even you. She cupped his face in her hands. I choose this. She kissed him. For a heartbeat, he was frozen. Then something broke inside him, and he was pulling her closer, hands in her hair, mouth hungry on hers. We shouldn't, he gasped against her lips. I know. This changes everything. I know. If Mercer finds out, he'll use it against us. Let him try. He lifted her onto the table, scattering dishes and silverware. She didn't care. Couldn't care. Not when his hands were on her waist, his mouth on her throat, his body pressing against hers with desperate need. Tell me to stop, he said. Tell me, and I will. Don't stop. She pulled at his cravat, fumbling with the knots. Don't ever stop. They didn't make it to a bedroom. The dining room became a tangle of discarded clothing and whispered words, of skin against skin, of two people who had been alone for too long finally finding each other. Afterward, they lay on the carpet before the fire, wrapped in a tablecloth, breathing hard. Well, Marin said. That was unexpected. Kaelin laughed. An actual laugh, warm and real. Was it? I've been wanting to do that since you called me a monster in your father's study. You are a monster. Yes, he kissed her forehead. But I'm your monster now. She propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face. The sharp lines had softened. The shadows in his eyes had lifted, just slightly. What happens tomorrow? Tomorrow, we plan. Mercer will move against us soon. We need to be ready. And us? What are we? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I've never done this before. Done what? Seduced a woman on a dining room table? Cared about someone more than I care about revenge. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. It's terrifying, if I'm honest. Good. You should be terrified. She smiled. I certainly am. Are you? Absolutely. You're a duke. I'm a disgraced woman sold by her father. Society will never accept this. Damn society. You don't mean that. I mean every word. He sat up, pulling her with him. Listen to me, Marin. I spent 7 years living for the dead. Following rules that didn't protect my sister. Worrying about names and reputations while real people suffered. I'm done with that life. What are you saying? I'm saying that when this is over, when Mercer is destroyed, I want to marry you, not because of contracts or obligations, not because your father sold you to me, because I choose you. Heat prickled behind her eyes. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're brave and brilliant and completely infuriating. I know you make me laugh for the first time in years. I know that when I'm with you, I feel like myself again. He took her hands. Is that not enough? It's too much. Her voice wavered, raw and desperate. It's everything I never thought I'd have. Then say yes. I can't. Not yet. Not while Mercer is still out there. Not while this threat hangs over us. He nodded slowly. Then we destroy him first. Together. Together. He kissed her again, soft and sweet. A promise, not a demand. Stay with me tonight, he said. Not for that. Just stay. I don't want to be alone anymore. Neither do I. They climbed the stairs together, hand in hand. His bedroom was simpler than she'd expected. A large bed, a writing desk, walls lined with books. He gave her one of his shirts to sleep in. It hung to her knees and smelled like him. They lay together in the darkness, her head on his chest and his arms around her. Kaylin. Thank you. For telling me the truth, for trusting me. Thank you for staying, for choosing me, even when I gave you every reason not to. She pressed a kiss to his chest, right above his heart. Get some sleep, she whispered. Tomorrow, we go to war. Morning came too soon. Maren woke to an empty bed and a cold hollow in her chest. For a moment, she thought she'd dreamed everything. The dinner, the confession, the night spent in his arms. Then she saw the note on his pillow. Gone to intercept a messenger from London. Stay inside until I return. Don't trust anyone. See, she dressed quickly, mind racing. A messenger from London could mean anything. News about Mercer, legal documents, another threat. Mrs. Thornwood met her in the hallway, face pale. Miss Ashford, His Grace asked me to keep you safe until he returns. What's happening? I don't know, miss. But there's a carriage coming up the drive. Not His Grace's. Dread pooled in Maren's stomach. Mercer? I don't think so. It looks like your father's crest. Her father. Here. Now. She descended the stairs slowly, every instinct screaming at her to hide. But hiding wouldn't change anything, wouldn't make her father disappear. Lord Ashford waited in the great hall, hat in hands, face gray with exhaustion. Behind him stood two men Maren didn't recognize, large, rough, with the look of hired muscle. Maren, her father's voice cracked. Thank God you're safe. Safe? She stopped at the base of the stairs. You sold me, father. Twice. Don't pretend you care about my safety. I didn't have a choice. Mercer threatened everything. Our home, our name, your mother's grave. He stepped toward her, and she stepped back. Please, Maren, you have to come with me. Now, before the Duke returns. Why? So you can deliver me to Mercer like promised? Mercer is dead. The word sucked all the air from the room. What? Last night. His estate burned to the ground. They found his body in the ruins this morning. Her father's hands shook. The Duke did it. Set the fire himself. The magistrates are on their way here now to arrest him. No. The word came out as a whisper. No. Kaylin wouldn't. The evidence is damning. Witnesses saw him near Mercer's estate last night. They found letters in the ruins threatening Mercer's life. The Duke's own handwriting. Those letters are forgeries. Mercer has been forging documents for years. It doesn't matter. The magistrates believe them. And when they arrive, anyone associated with the Duke will be arrested as an accomplice. Her father grabbed her arm. You have to come with me. Now. Before it's too late. Maren yanked free. I'm not going anywhere with you. This isn't a request. Her father nodded to the two men behind him. I'm sorry, Maren. Truly. But I won't let you destroy yourself for a murderer. The men moved forward. Maren backed away, searching for escape, but they were faster, stronger. One grabbed her arms, the other clamped a hand over her mouth. Take her to the carriage, her father said. Quickly, before the servants notice. Maren fought, kicked and scratched and bit, but it was useless. They dragged her through the servants' entrance, across the stable yard, toward a waiting carriage. She caught one glimpse of Thornbury Castle before they shoved her inside. The Black Towers, the Gargoyle Guardians, the only place that had ever felt like home. Then the door slammed shut, and she was gone. The journey took 6 hours. Her father sat across from her, silent, refusing to meet her eyes. The hired men sat on either side, preventing any attempt at escape. She didn't cry, wouldn't give her father the satisfaction. Instead, she planned. They arrived at a house she didn't recognize, small, isolated, Somewhere in the countryside far from London or Thornbury. You'll stay here until this blows over, her father said, helping her from the carriage. It's for your own protection. It's a prison. It's necessary. He led her inside, up narrow stairs, to a small bedroom with barred windows. I'll send word when it's safe. And Kaelin, what happens to him? The Duke is no longer your concern. He's everything to me. Her father flinched. You'll forget him. In time. Never. He left without another word. She heard the lock click behind him. Maren stood at the barred window, staring out at unfamiliar fields. Kaelin was going to be arrested, possibly hanged for a murder he didn't commit. And she was trapped here, powerless to help, unless she found a way out. She searched the room methodically. The bed was bolted to the floor. The wardrobe was too heavy to move. The window bars were solid iron. But the door had an old lock, the kind that could be picked if you knew how. Maren thought of everything Kaelin had taught her, the documents he'd shown her, the plans they'd made, the secrets of Mercer's operation she now knew better than anyone. Mercer was dead, but someone had killed him. Someone had forged those letters. Someone wanted Kaelin to take the blame, and she was going to find out who. She pulled a pin from her hair and began to work on the lock. By morning, she would be free. By nightfall, she would be back at Thornbury. And God help anyone who tried to stop her. The lock gave way just before dawn. Maren slipped out of the room, down the servants' stairs, and into the cold morning air. Her father's guards were asleep. Sloppy, overconfident. Their mistake. She found a horse in the stable and rode hard toward the main road. She had no money, no supplies, nothing but the dress on her back and a burning determination in her chest. 3 hours later, she stopped at a coaching inn to rest the horse. And there, on a table in the common room, she saw the newspaper. Duke of Thornbury, arrested for murder. Her hands trembled as she read. The 8th Duke of Thornbury was taken into custody yesterday evening on suspicion of murdering Lord Vincent Mercer. Witnesses report seeing the Duke near Mercer's estate on the night of the fire. Letters threatening Mercer's life, allegedly in the Duke's hand, were recovered from the ruins. The Duke maintains his innocence, but has refused to provide an alibi for the night in question. He is currently held in the county jail awaiting trial, refused to provide an alibi, because his alibi was her, a night spent in each other's arms, a night that would destroy her reputation if revealed. He was protecting her, even now, even facing the gallows. She kept reading. Lord Mercer's estate passed to his cousin, Mr. Hadrian Mercer, upon his death. Mr. Mercer has expressed outrage at the Duke's alleged actions and has called for the swiftest possible justice. Hadrian Mercer. She'd never heard the name. But something about it nagged at her memory. She thought of everything Kaelin had told her. Mercer's network, his allies, his careful plans to avoid justice. Mercer had no heir, no family that anyone knew of. So who was this cousin, appearing from nowhere to claim the estate? The answer hit her like a thunderbolt. There was no cousin. Hadrian Mercer was a fiction, a convenient identity, created to take over Mercer's operations after his death, which meant Mercer had planned this. All of it. His own death, the forged letters, Kaelin's arrest. A final act of revenge from beyond the grave. Or perhaps not from beyond the grave at all. What if Mercer wasn't dead? The thought was insane. They'd found a body. Witnesses had identified it. The newspapers reported it as fact. But Mercer had faked documents before. Forged signatures. Fabricated evidence. Why not fake his own death? Maren's mind raced. If Mercer was alive, he would need somewhere to hide. Somewhere no one would think to look. Somewhere he could rebuild his operation under a new name. And she knew exactly where that would be. The hunting lodge. The same lodge where Corinne had died. rebuilt, according to local records, by an anonymous buyer 3 years ago. She had no proof, nothing but instinct and desperation. But it was all she had. She mounted the horse and rode for the hunting lodge. If she was right, she would find Mercer and expose his deception. If she was wrong, she would lose everything. Either way, she wasn't going to let Kalen die for a crime he didn't commit. The hunting lodge stood in a clearing deep in the forest, surrounded by ancient oaks. It had been rebuilt exactly as Kalen described. Whitewashed walls, thatched roof, a picture of rural innocence. But smoke rose from the chimney, and horses were tied outside. Someone was here. Marin dismounted at the tree line, leaving her horse hidden in the underbrush. She approached the lodge slowly, staying low, using every bit of cover she could find. Voices drifted from an open window. Male voices. 2 of them. The trial is set for next week. By the time they realize the letters are forgeries, the Duke will already be hanged. And the girl? She could still cause problems. Her father has her locked away. By the time she escapes, if she escapes, it will be too late. Marin pressed herself against the wall, pulse hammering against her ribs. She knew that voice, had heard it threaten her, charm her, try to claim her. Lord Mercer was alive, and he was going to let Kalen hang for his murder. She needed proof, needed something she could take to the magistrates. But how? She was one woman against 2 men, possibly more. Then she remembered. The documents. Kalen had spent years gathering evidence of Mercer's crimes. Witness statements, financial records, letters from Corinne. If Mercer was alive, he would want those documents, would need them, to ensure no one could ever prove his deception, which meant they were probably here, in this lodge, where he thought no one would ever look. She circled the building, searching for another entrance, a cellar door, a servant's entrance, anything. She found it around back, a root cellar half hidden beneath overgrown vines. The door was old, rotting, barely latched. She slipped inside. The cellar was dark, damp, smelling of earth and decay. She felt her way along the walls until she found stairs leading up. They creaked beneath her feet, and she froze, listening. The voices continued above. Mercer and his accomplice, still planning their victory. She climbed the stairs and emerged into a storage room. Crates and boxes everywhere, filled with documents, ledgers, the accumulated evidence of years of crime. This was it. Everything Kalen had been looking for. Everything they needed to destroy Mercer once and for all. She began stuffing documents into her bodice, her sleeves, anywhere they would fit. Contracts, letters, bank records showing payments to forgers and assassins. Well, what have we here? She spun. Mercer stood in the doorway, a pistol in his hand. He looked different than before, thinner, older. A fresh scar ran along his cheek. Miss Ashford, I must say, I'm impressed. I didn't think you'd figure it out so quickly. You faked your death. Clever girl. He stepped closer. The body in the fire was a vagrant. Similar build, similar coloring. No one looked too closely. They never do, when they think they know what they're seeing. And the cousin? Hadrian Mercer? A useful fiction. I'll assume his identity once the Duke is hanged, claim the estate through forged documents, and disappear into the countryside as a respectable gentleman. You'll never get away with this. I already have. He raised the pistol. The only loose end is you. But that's easily remedied. Wait. She held up her hands. You need me alive. I know where the Duke kept his evidence. The real evidence. Kill me, and you'll never find it. Mercer hesitated. You're bluffing. Am I? He showed me everything. Every document. Every witness statement. Every letter your wife smuggled out before you killed her. She met his eyes. Shoot me, and that evidence goes straight to the magistrate. You're lying. Try me. A long pause. Mercer's finger twitched on the trigger. Then, from somewhere outside, the sound of hoofbeats. Many hoofbeats. Coming fast. A muscle feathered in Mercer's cheek. What did you do? I sent word to Mrs. Thornwood before I left the inn. Marin smiled. Did you really think I'd come here alone? The door burst open. Men poured in, magistrates and constables, led by a tall figure with dark hair and darker eyes. Kalen. He was pale, haggard, clearly just released from jail. But he was alive. And he was here. Lord Mercer, Kalen said, his voice cold enough to crack glass. Or should I say, the late Lord Mercer. We have a great deal to discuss. Mercer raised his pistol, but 3 constables tackled him before he could fire. The gun discharged into the ceiling, raining plaster down on everyone. And then it was over. Marin stood in the chaos, surrounded by shouting men and scattered documents, and found herself looking at Kalen across the room. He crossed to her in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. You brilliant, reckless, impossible woman. His voice trembled with emotion. Do you have any idea how terrified I was? You were in jail. I had to do something. You could have been killed. So could you. She pulled back to look at him. I wasn't going to let you hang for something you didn't do. How did you know I was released? I didn't. I sent word to Mrs. Thornwood, hoping she could get a message to the magistrate. I didn't know if anyone would come. She rode to the jail herself, demanded to speak with the chief constable, told him that if he didn't release me immediately, she would personally ensure that every newspaper in England knew about his incompetence. Kalen's laugh was broken, disbelieving. A 67-year-old housekeeper terrorized the entire county justice system. I love that woman. So do I. He cupped her face in his hands. And I love you. I should have said it before. Should have told you 100 times. You're telling me now. Marin Ashford, I love you. I love your courage, your brilliance, your absolute refusal to do what you're told. I love that you rode into danger alone to save me. I love that you figured out the truth when everyone else was fooled. He pressed his forehead to hers. I love everything about you, and I will spend the rest of my life proving it, if you'll let me. Is that a proposal? It's a promise. The proposal comes later, when you're not covered in cellar dust and surrounded by constables. He smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. But yes, when this is over, when the trial is finished, and Mercer is in prison where he belongs, I want to marry you. Properly. Publicly. In front of everyone. Then yes. Tears streamed down her face. Yes. I'll marry you. Yes. I'll love you. Yes to everything. He kissed her. Right there. In front of the magistrates and constables, and the handcuffed man who had tried to destroy them both. And for the first time in her life, Marin Ashford felt completely, utterly free. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Mercer fought every charge, hired the best lawyers in London, attempted to bribe witnesses and intimidate jurors. But the evidence was overwhelming. The documents Marin had recovered from the hunting lodge, combined with Kalen's years of research, painted a picture of systematic fraud, extortion, and murder that even the most corrupt judge couldn't ignore. In the end, Lord Vincent Mercer was convicted on 14 counts, including the murder of Lady Corinne Mercer. He was sentenced to hang. Marin watched from the gallery as the verdict was read. Kalen sat beside her, his hand wrapped around hers. When the judge pronounced the sentence, she felt him exhale, 7 years of grief and rage finally releasing. It's over, she whispered. Almost. He lifted her hand to his lips. There's still one thing left to do. The wedding was held at Thornbury Castle on a brilliant spring morning. The gardens were in full bloom, roses and lilacs perfuming the air. Guests had come from across the country, peers and commoners alike, all eager to witness the Duke of Thornbury marry the woman who had saved his life. Marin's gown was simple. Cream silk, minimal embroidery. Nothing like the elaborate confection society expected. But Kaylin had told her she looked like an angel, and that was all that mattered. Her father was not invited. She'd sent him a letter after the trial, brief and final. "You sold me twice. I will not give you a third opportunity." He hadn't responded. She hadn't expected him to. Mrs. Thornwood wept through the entire ceremony. So did half the household staff, who had grown to love their new mistress during her weeks at the castle. The vows were traditional. The kiss was not. Kaylin pulled her close and kissed her so thoroughly that the vicar blushed, and the guests broke into applause. "Scandalous," Marin murmured against his lips. "You love it." "I love you." Same thing. The wedding breakfast lasted until evening. There was dancing and champagne and more happiness than Marin had ever experienced in a single day. When the last guests finally departed, Kaylin led her up to their chambers, the same rooms she'd occupied during her first week at Thornbury. But everything was different now. The wardrobe held her own clothes, the writing desk held her own correspondence, the bed held the man she loved. "Finally alone," Kaylin said, drawing her near. "I thought they'd never leave." "Patience, Your Grace. I've been patient for years. I'm done with patience." He kissed her again, deeper this time, and she melted into him. They tumbled onto the bed, laughing, tangled in wedding clothes and each other. Later, much later, they lay together in the darkness. Marin's head rested on Kaylin's chest, listening to his heartbeat. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I'm thinking about the night we met. How terrified I was. How much I hated you. And now? Now, I can't imagine my life without you." She propped herself up, looking at him. "You bought me for £15,000. Do you ever regret it?" "Never." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're worth 100 times that. 1,000 times. Careful. My ego might grow. Your ego is perfect. Everything about you is perfect." Flatterer. Truth-teller. He pulled her down for a kiss. "I love you, Marin Vance. Now and always." "I love you too, Kaylin." She smiled against his lips. "Even though you're a monster. Your monster. My monster." Outside, the moon rose over the moors, casting silver light across the wild landscape. Inside, two people who had been brought together by darkness found their way to light. The nursery at Thornbury Castle was the warmest room in the house. A fire burned constantly, day and night, keeping the chill at bay. Toys scattered across the floor. A rocking horse stood by the window, and in a cradle by the hearth, a baby girl slept peacefully. Marin stood at the window, watching snow fall across the moors. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of happiness she'd never thought possible. Admiring the weather, she turned. Kaylin stood in the doorway, still handsome, still infuriating, still hers. "Remembering," she said, "the night we met, the price you paid." There was no price that night, only an investment. "An investment?" She crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Is that what I am?" "The best one I ever made." He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her hair. "Do you remember what you said that first night, when I told you that you belonged to me? I called you a monster. And I said yes." He tilted her chin up, meeting her eyes. "I was wrong. I wasn't a monster. I was just a man who had forgotten how to feel. You taught me." "I taught you?" "You taught me that courage isn't about fighting alone, that strength isn't about hiding your pain. That love," he paused, voice catching. "Love is worth every risk, every sacrifice, every moment of fear." She blinked back tears. "When did you become so poetic?" "I've always been poetic. You just weren't listening." She laughed, and he laughed with her. And in the cradle, their daughter stirred and smiled in her sleep. "Happy?" Kaylin asked. "More than I ever dreamed possible." "Good." He kissed her softly. because I plan to keep you happy for the rest of your life. Is that a promise? It's a vow. He pulled back, eyes bright. The same vow I made 3 years ago. To love you, to protect you, to choose you every day, for as long as we both live. Marin looked at this man who had bought her, saved her, and married her, who had given her a home, a family, a future. I choose you too, she whispered. Always. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, wrapped in warmth and love and the quiet joy of everything they'd built together, the Duke and Duchess of Thornbury watched their daughter sleep. And they knew, with absolute certainty, that some prices are worth paying, some choices are worth making, and some loves, the true ones, the impossible ones, the ones that begin in darkness and bloom into light, those loves are worth everything. Thank you for staying with Marin and Kaelin until the very end. Their story began with a price, a threat, and a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. But in the end, they chose each other. And that made all the difference. If you loved this story, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. More tales of impossible love and hard-won happiness are waiting for you. Because everyone deserves a story where love wins. Everyone deserves a happily ever after. Until next time.